everybody. Randy Patterson here with Boomerocity. You know, if you've watched any of the interviews on Boomerocity at all or read any of the interviews, you already know we're huge blues fans here. And whenever we get to find and discover a new up-and-comer, we get really excited. And that's the case for me. He's been around a while. He's been around a good bit, playing with others. But in the last, I don't know, 6 years or so, he's been doing his own solo work. And that guy is Eric Johanson. And I tell you, when I come across this this review copy of his new album, The Deep and the Dirty, I fell in love with this guy's work. This guy is friggin' amazing, especially if you love the blues. But blues is the closest genre you can maybe associate him with. But you'll hear everything else in there: Americana, roots, all that kind of stuff. And the blues, though, is what comes screaming out. And man, watching his videos and listening to the advanced copy of the record, man, I'm telling you, if you love the blues, you're really going to love this album. So give this interview a good listen. Tell your friends about it. And if you don't mind, would you please subscribe to this channel? We really could use your support that way. It doesn't cost you anything, but by getting more subscribers, it helps us in monetizing our efforts here. And hey, we'd like to kind of maybe make a penny or two. So if you would subscribe, tell your friends about us and ask them to subscribe. So without any further ado, here's my first of what I hope are many more interviews to come with Eric Johanson. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerocity. Take care. Hello, Eric.
How's it going?
It's going great. How about yourself?
Good, good.
Where are you dialing in from?
New Orleans.
All right. Good deal. It's been a while since I've been there. Gosh, it's been it's been since before Katrina, so I probably wouldn't know the place.
Yeah, a lot of stuff hasn't changed. So.
Yeah, cool, very good. Well, hey, thanks for taking the time to meet with me, Eric. It's a pleasure. I love your new album. I want to talk about that in a moment, but just want to see how things are in your world, and just probably lead off with asking you, what did you do during your COVID vacation?
It's funny. I had just recorded my last album, Below Sea Level.
Mm-hmm.
We actually were in the studio like the end of February of 2020. So it was literally about a week after that. I had some shows and things started to get canceled and everything. So in the beginning part of it, I had this album that was, the tracks were done and it needed to get mixed and mastered and get the artwork. So for a while, I just kind of worked on continuing that through the pipeline, started doing some live streams. Then as it dragged on a bit, made the decision that still wanted to put the record out because, I still felt like it was important to get new music out So kind of really, started looking at making more music videos and things like that since the shows weren't there. So I kind of got deeper into that and 2021, things were still pretty slow. And I decided, I had just come out with the Below Sea Level record in the end of 2020. So it wasn't really time for another studio record. So I decided to reinterpret some songs from other artists and do acoustic covers.
Mm-hmm.
So I did 2 acoustic cover EPs called Covered Tracks Volume 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
So again, just kind of keeping that communication going with the fans, trying to and I was doing weekly live streams at that point. And then as the shows started to come back, I did a live album, but I kept the live streams going for a good 2 years of just about weekly. And that was a pretty cool thing that has had an effect that I didn't really expect, which is a lot of people from around the country coming up and saying, and abroad, but people saying that they really connected with that was something that they had on the calendar every week, that they were tuning in, but also that people actually just somehow stumbled across the live stream and actually discovered me from the live stream.
Oh, wow.
Which is
cool.
Backwards from what I would have thought. I'd have thought, well, the only people that are going to show up here are going to be people that already knew me from before, saw me somewhere else before, but people were at home and had a lot of time online, and some people actually discovered the live stream. So all in all, I can't really complain as far as, I mean, it may not have gone exactly how I pictured those years going, but I think there was good that came from it, from,
Mhm.
just in terms of making the best out of the situation.
Yeah. Well, I know for me, I kind of went was drug kicking and screaming getting into video. I was always a, phone call and record it and transcribe type of thing. And then I was actually invited to someone else's interview and I thought, hey, I think I can do this. So the video thing for me turned out to be a godsend and probably wouldn't have happened if COVID hadn't happened or wouldn't have happened as soon.
Right.
But I'm curious from your perspective, do you find that by doing those live streams and connecting with fans that way, by going back out on the road and doing those performances, has that resulted in more of a tighter connection with your fans?
I think so. Yeah. Uh, you know, it's often, it's funny. It's a little bit of a, people will come up and introduce themselves. And I think there's almost that, you forget that the camera is one way, when you're doing a live stream. So they have to tell me their name. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember,
Yeah.
but they, because I don't know their faces a lot of the time. But yeah, for sure. I mean, it surprises me how, people always, they say nice things, and you hear it, and you sort of take it to heart. But now that I've actually been back out on the road and I'm meeting people from different states who were tuning in and telling me about how they used to tune in every Thursday and everything, it really is, it starts to actually hit you that this was, you were actually making real connections with people. It wasn't just a screen name on a
Yeah.
computer. There's real people out there that were connecting. So I absolutely, yeah, I think it's, I mean, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge number of people, but it's for those people, they've definitely become a lot closer. Um,
I
as a
think they
result.
become more of an evangelist for you too, because I mean, let's face it, you guys like you and I, we get to talk to a lot of people that everybody really, and an artist, so you're looked up to, but you probably know a lot of people that people think, oh, that's cool that you get to talk with them. And I don't know about you, but I get a little jaded sometimes on it. And then when I see one of my friends who is a Facebook friend with, a celebrity, that's a huge deal to them. I mean, and it should be because it's a cool connection, right? But for somebody to be able to connect with you and say that makes that person more of an evangelist that can tell 10 more, 20 more people about who you are and what your work is and
Right.
sharing your videos and all that. I mean, I think it has an exponential effect. Have you seen that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this style of music, of organic music, is very much word of mouth spread. It's not something that is on the big billboards and on the top 40 radio stations. This is something that people find out about because a friend turned them on to it, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe because they went to see somebody else and they saw you open up or something like that. But I mean, it's a very much a word of mouth type of thing. So yes, there are those people out there that they'll put on my record when they're having a backyard party or something and play it for all their friends and stuff. It's great. I mean, and I'm very at this point, I'm still very involved in everything, so I have a store online. I recognize the names of people that order things from my store when they introduce themselves, and then I'll say, "What's your last name?" And then I'll be like, "Oh yeah," and I'll know the name because maybe they ordered a T-shirt or something, or like,
Yeah.
so it's I mean, it's getting to the point where I'm starting to think about how can I maintain that while maybe bringing in somebody to help me out to kind of continue it running and growing.
Yeah.
But I'm still so into the mailing list, the email list. People write me back, people write me through social media. I answer them to the best of my ability.
Mm-hmm.
So that connection is real. And and I think that they can see that, it's not a facade. So it's
Right.
so they feel personally involved, and I feel personally sometimes connected with them. So
Mhm. Well,
yeah,
cool.
it's a good thing.
So you said people would discovered you during the live streams you were doing. To that point, for those that will be seeing this probably next week, um, maybe give a little elevator speech about who you are. Because I mean, I know who you are. Some blues, aficionados are going to know, but this is going to be going to people who haven't heard of you yet. So maybe a quick little elevator speech.
Well, I'm a artist, songwriter, guitar player from New Orleans. I done different styles of music in my past, and I spent a little while playing guitar for other people, and despite the fact that on and off I would perform sort of power trio type shows in this vein, it really wasn't until 2017 that I started releasing records under my own name with this format, just doing this straight ahead, picking up a guitar, power trio type of thing. And that started with working with Tab Benoit, who produced my first album under my name, and going on the road with him for a couple years, and that basically led me into where we sort of started out earlier, where I went on the road with him, was touring with him a good bit from late 2017 till pretty much the end of 2019, and then went in the studio with Luther Dickinson to produce my second record, and then now I have this third one coming out, produced by Jesse Dayton. That's yeah, I feel like my best record yet. So, I'm always not trying to specifically stick within a certain genre, but my music is heavily blues influenced and inspired.
Who was it that got you into interested in the blues way back?
You know, it's hard to say because I feel like on the one hand, I was influenced by MTV growing up, and I was a big like Metallica fan when I was like in junior high and stuff. And I went from that until I started thinking, well, who taught him how to play, or who did these guys? And then I started discovering the Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and all these people. And then I was really into instrumental guitar music. But at the same time, my mom had a bunch of blues records, and I would enjoy those too. And then when I started to see those threads connecting, and it's like, oh, this guitar player that I like, well, he's talking about Hendrix, and then I immediately latched on to Hendrix, and then it's like, well, all this stuff, these guys are both talking about, Albert King or Freddie King or something. So I started to see that convergence, and then as I was able to go, there was a a couple spots where underage people could go see live music, bar grill type of things.
Mm-hmm.
And as I started to kind of be able to play, the fact that if I could play a blues song, I could sit in with these older musicians who were really good and jam with them. That just lit my mind on fire. And then all of a sudden I got it. You know what I mean? So then from that point, when I was listening to the blues, it was speaking a language I understood, because the more that I was jamming on the stuff and improvising with people, the more that I was just ready to soak all of it up as much as
Mm-hmm.
I could. So it was Buddy Guy, and of course Stevie Ray Vaughan and Freddie King and you know Albert Collins, and like all these different people that I was just soaking that up. And then it's interesting. I sort of came back to weaving those things together. I actually saw Government Mule for the first time opening for Buddy Guy down here in New Orleans. And then I was like, wow, they're taking sort of some of this rock stuff that I've always been into, and this blues stuff, and like it's really coming together in a really interesting way. Um, and to some extent, I think that's ultimately been what I've always been trying to do is really being able to write songs without boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
um, but have that emotional expressiveness in it.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing like the blues getting down to the. I mean, just the. I mean, for me as a little kid, I'm probably old enough to be your dad, but I grew up on Elvis, and whenever he did the blues, oh my God! I mean, it might have been, a little bit different kind of blues than what we're talking about, but there was those roots there, and there was just something that just grabs you. Even I was a preschooler when I was turned on to him. So for me to hear hear somebody like Elvis sing the blues, it was a big deal to me. And then
Yeah.
growing with it, and then of course you evolve into people like Clapton and all that. But yeah, I hear you, man. That resonates with me. So tell me about this album. This is your third one. You said you also did a couple of EPs there. How is this album different for you to put together than the other ones of your own, as well as anybody else's that you worked on for?
Well, I feel like, like I mentioned, the goal has kind of been to not feel that I need to fit my creativity into a certain box.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if I pick up a guitar and don't think about what I'm going to do, it's likely to sound bluesy. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, trying to, as I've gone, through trying to figure out how to do this and how to find an audience for it, trying to think of how much I need to fit the creativity in a certain lane or not has been a process that, at first I thought, well, if the way that I get to play this stuff and enjoy it is to fit it into a certain box, then maybe I need to lean toward that. But over time, I really never found myself able to do that because more often than not, the thing that I'll find interesting about a riff or something will be something different about it or something that grabs me that's, interesting. And already there, I'm going into a direction that is not saying, well, here's a template for a blues song. Let me write some different lyrics on it. So I suppose I've become more comfortable with the idea that if the approach is organic, if the emotion is honest
Mm-hmm.
and the communication is honest, it doesn't really matter that you change chords at 12 bars or whatever. I don't think that the audience for the most part is really that picky about that. They might say, "Oh, I like this, I like that," but we only have certain terms for these things. So I would say we're all just trying to find stuff we want to listen to.
Yeah.
So so to take bring it back to your question about the new album, I really feel like it's starting to get to a place where I'm doing music that's exciting to me, that has some surprises and some different things about it. It feels very right now to me and not like it's supposed to be of another time or anything. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, it maintains that uh expressiveness and that honesty. So, I'm really excited about the all the songs on this record. Like to me, they're all songs that I'm looking forward to playing live. They all have a special place for me. Yeah, and also in the creation of this record, I was able to get with Jesse Dayton and I got, we did some Zoom meetings and stuff prior to the record, and I was sending him voice memos and ideas, songs, and he would have a lot of times a suggestion for it, and that's not really something that I had done on previous records. For the most part, we showed up in the studio, we started recording, and the producer sort of guided, oh yeah, I think that's a good take, or maybe maybe I think let's do another one or whatever. But for the most part, the songs as I wrote them at home were the songs in their final form on those records. And
Wow.
with this one, we actually collaborated a little bit more, where he had some suggestions, and I was like, yeah, that actually works. I like that. So that was also different.
You mentioned surprises there. What kind of surprises did you run into with this album?
It's I always demo things out. so, we start with the voice memo process, kind of where I'm like humming things, and then that evolves to like, okay, now I've got a song written out. Then I always demo things with basically like a drum machine, and a bass guitar and guitar, because that's my only way, not being able to read sheet music or anything like that. That's my only way of seeing if the pieces fit.
Yeah.
I've got to actually see if we've got something here, and that's also due to a time limitation of, these days you don't tend to have the budget or time to spend a long time in the studio, so you kind of need to know what you're going to do
Yeah.
before you get in there. But at the same time, it was really great to me how they came alive in the studio, when playing with the band. A lot of these things, they worked even better than I thought, in terms of like they were exciting to play in the studio. We had moments that happened, where a solo, the whole band would just be elevating it to a certain point that wasn't even really planned. And, so that sort of thing is always, there was a lot of chemistry there. And of course, the guys that I recorded with, I've played before, Terrence Higgins and Eric Vogel.
Mhm.
Um, so there, we already had a camaraderie and everything, but yeah, it was really a smooth process of getting the songs down almost in their final form, like live.
Cool. Cool. How long did it take you to make the record?
Well, really, about 3 days of recording stuff. It ended up being about 2 days with the rhythm section, and then another day to just really, there were maybe a couple of little guitar things that I added, like textural things that you don't really, it's still mainly trio, but there might be a place where maybe I'd add a chord in the background or something like that. And then we did vocals and like shakers and tambourines on a certain day. Then, that was about it. So, I mean, I'd say like about 3 to 5 days for recording everything that you hear. And then we came back and mixed it in about 3 days. Um, I mean, so altogether about 8 days in the studio.
Really?
Then it's just the process of kind of getting it mastered and on the getting it on the calendar and all the business side of things.
Yeah.
Well, which takes always longer than you want it to,
Mhm.
um, but yeah, the actual creative process was quite quick.
So I learned a long time ago not to ask this of artists. I never ask what your favorite song is because it's like picking your favorite child, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but I got a little smarter, and so I have to ask, which song from the album would you point to as a calling card, especially as somebody who hasn't heard you before, and you go, "Hey, if you like this song, you're really going to dig the rest of the record."
Yeah. Um, that's interesting. I mean, I would say really about any of them, I think could indicate that you'll like the rest of the record. But Don't Hold Back, the first one that we released from it, the first single, that was kind of my first recorded use of a fuzzier sound, which I kind of, got into, and that's got an energy that's, I think, kind of indicative of the energy of the record. And then the second single, The Deep and the Dirty, the title track,
Yeah.
because there's a little bit of a mix of groove and funk and everything that I do. I would say there's a little bit of Americana, even though I'm not at all country, but just because of my voice, I guess. And, I've got sort of a way of approaching things that maybe has a little bit of that influence, southern whatever, where there's, a little bit of that. But then there's also some stuff on the record where I'm using like the resonator guitar,
Mhm.
and where they're really, you hear a little bit more of that delta thing in there. But I the first two singles we've released, I've been excited to have people hear those. But yeah, there's definitely some cool uses of, slide guitar and
Mhm.
delta sounds mixed with songwriting, which to me is, I'm excited about those songs too.
So in support of this, what's on your radar? I've saw your itinerary. You got some pretty cool dates coming up. It's not looking like I'll be able to catch your Nashville date, but if I can, I'm going to try to.
Yeah,
But
please.
what else is on your radar for, say, for the next 12 months, in addition to that tour, very busy tour? What else you have coming up, on your schedule?
Well, there's a possibility I may be doing some European stuff next year, but I don't think any of that. I can't really share much about any of that yet. But I'm out there doing a lot of support dates with Samantha Fish. She's been great, having us open up shows really since like the end of last year. We've done a lot of her shows. So, I've got those tours, and then also headline dates mixed in there as well, a few festival things, but hoping next year to, be hitting a lot more festivals and really kind of getting out there and doing a lot more traveling. But we're definitely going to be out there playing, that's as much as possible.
Cool. Well, you're a young man, and I hope that I get to interview you a lot more in the coming years. Every time you have a new album out, or going to, some kind of project that needs highlighting. But so maybe every other time I talk to you, I'll ask you this question. I ask it of people too that have been in this business a lot longer than you have, but I think you're going to be around a long time. So I want to kind of gauge how you change your answer on this over the years. And that is, and it's not meant to be a macabre type of question. It's really just kind of where your head's at on life and your career and that type of thing. And that's if you step off of the great tour bus of life at the great gig in the sky, to borrow from Pink Floyd, how do you want to be remembered, and what do you hope your legacy is?
Yeah, I guess I don't really think about that stuff a lot. I suppose, to me, the project of what I enjoy about music is, it's sort of like somebody's who exploring the deep sea or space or something. I don't really view any of this as coming from me, in the sense that, like, yeah, I'll take credit. Oh yeah, I wrote that song, but what does that mean? I wrote it. I discovered it. So I'm just trying to discover things about myself and help and just the world in general. I'm just trying to kind of reach out and into the abyss and sort of figure out what's going on here. And to the extent that my music can assist in other people doing that for themselves, that's, to me, what I would like to, that's the impact I would like to have if I had a lasting impact. Whenever anybody's told me, it doesn't happen all the time, but whenever anybody, says to me, your music made me think about things differently, or really opened me up to something that I didn't know I was going to be into, and that opened up this whole new thing, whatever it is, it's not about that feeding my ego. It's just that that's all I'm trying to do also, is just sort of expand the horizons for myself. And to the extent that what I do can assist in other people doing that for themselves, and sort of actualizing, their lives, that's the kind of legacy that I would, want. I mean, it's not going to matter to me once I'm not here, but but I mean, just in terms of that's, I don't. I think it's interesting how the personalities in music, we look up to people as though they're superhuman. And I think to a certain extent we enjoy doing that because it's just great to idolize people. It's fun to go, oh, they were just amazing. And it's not to say that people aren't amazing. It's just that I think if you were to really look at, well, how did you become able to do that thing that was amazing? I don't know. I don't know. So it's always bigger than you,
Yeah, I agree.
and so I think that, for me, it's a process of discovery. So my hope is to help other people discover things for themselves too. And I would rather be remembered in that way, or have that effect on people, rather than them just thinking, oh wow, he could really play or something like
Yeah.
that. Not,
Yeah.
you know, which is fine too, but I mean, for me, um, I don't consider myself the craziest guitar player or anything. And even if I was, that's still what how much would that have to do with me? I mean, it would just
Right.
be, well, I guess I just sort of ended up there. So it's probably a
You caught
roundabout
that
answer.
ball.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's you can't ever really get full of yourself about anything because you don't really have anything to do with it. I mean, when I'm sitting there, when a song pops in my head and I'm going, huh, and I'm like humming something, well, where did that come from? I don't know. I'm just discovering this stuff. So I'm just, I'm just kind of surfing the things that are out there. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just I enjoy doing it. It's what I feel like I need to do, and I hope that I can have a positive impact on people.
Cool. Man, I know I love your music, and I'm looking forward to anything else you have coming out. And when you do, let's make sure we meet up like this so we can help get the word out. And like I said, I hope I can catch you, if not in Nashville, somewhere in the coming months
Yeah.
when you're coming nearby here. I'm out in East Tennessee, so
Oh, okay.
but it was a lot of fun talking with you, Eric. Please stay safe when you're out there on the road, and look forward to seeing what you got coming next.
All right, sounds good, man. Thank
All
you.
right, take care, my friend.
All right, you too.
Bye bye.